So, when it comes to Spider-Man, two things are always true. With great power comes great responsibility, and Uncle Ben is dead, which is kind of a corollary to the first thing. Now we may have to add a third truism, at least in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Spider-Man must always have an older, goateed mentor. So while Iron Man has shuffled off this mortal coil, Peter Parker will apparently fill the Tony Stark-shaped hole in his heart with Stephen Strange, the best darn surgeon turned sorcerer in the tri-state area, or your money back. That's right, folks. According to the Hollywood Reporter, Hollywood reported that the Benedict Cumberbatch himself, I don't know why I said that, Benedict Cumberbatch is going to be joining Tom Holland in what I'm calling Spider-Man Sanctum Sanctorum. It's going to hit theaters on March 25th, 2022. And this obviously opens up a raft of questions, especially given that Spider-Man 3 will happen after WandaVision, but before Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So before we get into that, my question to the panel is, what are your initial thoughts on Doctor Strange joining this movie? So Andres, let's start with you.
Woo! I mean, there's a lot there. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversations. Obviously, this has been a story over the past week, considering that when is Spider-Man gonna leave the nest? When is he gonna sprout his wings and fly away and not have a goatee mentor, as you said, Dan? And the idea of adding a Doctor Strange, does that limit his character growth as a Tom Holland Spider? That's a question that's been brought up to me. I, for one, am excited for a potential Spider-Verse. I like Doctor Strange. I like Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange. The idea of introducing the multiverse inside the Spider-Man universe is opening a lot of different avenues, considering that we have the potential to see a Tobey Maguire return, an Andrew Garfield appearance, which would be kind of insane, but at the same time, absolutely hysterical. I cannot lie. I would love to see a Tobey Maguire come back as Spider-Man in the Spider-Man suit and just pretend to be an 18-year-old, even though he's far from it.
Look, they have the technology. They can age anyone down. Not great.
I don't want it.
Don't be
No, I don't want that.
He could claim, he's like, hey guys, I'm 18. Even though he's not, as like a meta joke. The more I imagine this movie, the more I see the meta-ness of it all, where it's just so meta to the point that I even feel like they will play teenagers just to be funny and just to wink at the camera as like, yeah, we get it. We were old when we played teenagers. I don't know how this movie's going to work out. I don't see it anything other than just a ridiculous comedy. So
look, I'm very intrigued by this Pen 15-esque version of Spider-Man that you proposed here. Where just like they're clearly adults being teenagers, everyone else is the right age. Yeah. But Angelique, I saw your face when he brought up the multiverse, so I'm curious. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what role you think a character like Stephen Strange will play in this third Spider-Man outing.
So I agree, Andres, I agree with you on certain things, but for different reasons. So he is still a teenager. Let's be real. He had a lot of mentors in the comics. You know, he had a lot of folks looking out for him. Reed was looking out for him. Tony was looking out for him. Like, he's still a teenager. He can't vote. Like, just give him a second. Maybe he'll be able to vote in this new movie. I don't know. So my whole thing is, I think Stephen Strange might be the perfect mentor at this point. Do you remember their interactions? He was like, hey, I'm Peter. Oh, I'm Doctor Strange. We're using our fake names. Like, I see this as going to be hilarious because Benedict Cumberbatch is very funny as a human being. Tom has really good comedic timing, particularly in his role as Spider-Man. I honestly think it's going to be less of a mentor and more of a, I'm going to push you in the deep end. Good luck, kid. Like, I already told you what you needed to know. Why aren't you doing it? So I also say that without a scintilla of understanding about what this movie is going to be, just for the record. Make sure that's known. But I love Benedict Cumberbatch. Like, I think he's a great actor, and I think he's done wonders with the role of Doctor Strange. And so, you know, maybe it's not a full mentee mentor situation. Maybe he tries, and Benedict and Doctor Strange is like, kid, you're grown, go somewhere.
Yeah, I like that possibility as well. We have John Embry in the chat saying, excited, hope it's more of a team up, less mentor. Spider-Man needs to show that he's capable. Because I agree, like he has this nice arc where he is kind of coming into his own as a young man, as a hero, coming into his powers, assuming this great responsibility. And his mentor figure is gone. And now he has this person who definitely doesn't want a student. Like, Stephen Strange is not about having an intern, so I think that friction hopefully will yield some outsized comedy. As you mentioned, I do think Benedict Cumberbatch is very underrated when it comes to that. But Loke Desaad 6 in the chat also put something in there that I'm curious about because it kind of lines up with rumblings that I've been curious about. Are they going to use Doctor Strange to wipe the memory of Peter Parker's identity from everyone's minds, which makes me think about one of the most controversial storylines in Spidey history, One More Day, which could potentially introduce Mephisto and then perhaps the multiverse into the fold. So Preeti, I'm curious, what do you think about that?
That was actually my initial line of thinking when I heard the news, was very much One More Day. Like 100% the first thing I thought of, because that is, you're right, it is very, very controversial, and I'm going to leave it at that in terms of the feelings about it. But, the kind of post-credit sequence of Far From Home was incredible, right? Like, I remember seeing it, and I was sitting next to someone from Marvel who had already seen a version of the movie, and he's like, the two end tags are going to kill you. And I was like, what does that mean? And then it happened, and I think I like slapped him on the arm, and I was like, what? So waiting to find out the fallout from that, because what's been different in the MCU for Spider-Man is he is pretty cavalier about who knows his secret and who doesn't, right? It's kind of like, all right, I'm Peter. What's up, everybody? So figuring out how to pull it back from everyone in the world knowing he's Spider-Man, which is such an iconic thing, is like people should not know who Spider-Man is. Like he does not have Stark money to protect his loved ones, as we know. So I think very much it could potentially pull in Doctor Strange, which I am super down for, because I do not want another mentor for Peter. Like, I think Far From Home was about him finding himself as a hero. So it feels like a step backwards to have him be like, okay, I still need someone to show me how to be a hero. Like, you don't, you're good. You're fine, kid. So having Doctor Strange come in and exist within this universe to help him specifically to fix this problem that he cannot fix with the powers that he has, I'm down with. And having Mephisto show up in the MCU post WandaVision, like what WandaVision can potentially bring to the magic of the storytelling and bring more magic and like fantasy into what has thus far been a very scientific based MCU, I'm super excited about.
Yeah, and I got to agree with you there. I think that Mephisto offers so much weird, horrifying potential here. Like, in my head, I almost pictured as like they're in the sanctum. Doctor Strange steps out to use the mystic bathroom, tells Peter not to touch anything. Peter opens the wrong book because he's a curious cat and can't help himself, reads the wrong passage, and then boom, the devil himself, Mephisto's there like, I can solve your identity crisis problem. Oh, someone stole your identity? Oh, I can fix this for you, but say goodbye to Zendaya.
Oh, it would be so sad though if they decided to go that route.
Michelle goes nowhere, guys.
No.
No, I just mean in relation to Peter.
No. We waited too long.
She literally had a mace. Is that what?
Yeah,
she had a mace.
You don't get to take that away.
No,
that is the one thing. No. Like, I'm down with everything except the notion of like you have to give up this relationship. I think it should be something else.
I think it's probably and the communists stay together. That's it. Done.
I think it's going to be closer to the comic if they go that route, and so like Aunt May will be in like mortal peril or something like that.
Well, I hope that's not true either. They need to use Aunt May better.
I'm sorry, yes. Marissa Tomei is also. I'm sorry, that whole movie. I'm sorry, all of them. Jon Favreau. All
everyone's perfect.
They're just don't change.
Don't be mean to them.
They can't help it. They love being mean to the ones we love. It's just how they mind drama. But I'm curious as well. Before we wrap things up here, I want to go back to there's sort of two schools of thought about this movie in the capital D discourse I've seen online so far, which is that either they are teeing up a multiverse or a Spider-Verse as teased by the quickly deleted Jamie Foxx Instagram post of Electro looming over a city with 3 Spider-Men, however you conjugate it,
Spidersmen.
I have you covered.
Spider-Man,
like-
my knee? Wait, no, that doesn't work. Okay.
Spider-Man. So then, or this is just a different version of the character, like a just updated, new lease on life version of Max Dillon, like we saw with InfoWars version of J. Jonah Jameson. So I want to pose this question to the panel. What do you think they are doing here, especially as it pertains to Jamie Foxx and his version of Electro? So Andres, let's start with you.
Yeah, I definitely, that's the first thing I thought of when I first heard that Electro was coming back. I almost thought of it as like they were trying to do what they did with J. Jonah Jameson, where it's J. Jonah Jameson, but a different J. Jonah Jameson. It's not the one from the Tobey Maguire movies. I could see them doing that with Electro, especially considering he was one of the most disliked Spider-Man villain we've seen on screen. Not a lot of people were on board for that Electro. So I would prefer to see Jamie Foxx play a much different Electro. I think my question as well is bringing Doctor Strange in makes it seem like it's multiverse, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be from the exact same format of that movie. So it could be Electro, Jamie Foxx, but it's a different Electro. J. Jonah Jameson, same actor, but a different J. Jonah Jameson. And you could bring in other characters from different movies as well. I think my question to you guys, and I know, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm taking over.
No, please.
Is the idea of Sony using this to kind of push away from the MCU, considering the whole contractual obligations to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, expanding their own universe and kind of closing that loop, if that makes sense. I've heard rumors that maybe they're using this as a way to kind of make their own Spider-Verse and not necessarily rely on MCU characters as much after this movie. I don't know if that's still a thing.
I'll say this is before I open it up to the panel. We saw Adrian Toomes, the Vulture, appear in the trailer for Morbius, giving a sense that these worlds are connected. Yes. And Sony, for so long, has wanted to make a Sinister Six movie. They want that so badly, all of these villains on screen together. And a key component of that is Electro. You want, especially a character, someone like Jamie Foxx brings so much charisma to the big screen, giving him another crack at this character that I think he's pretty eager to put a different stamp on this time. I think it's fascinating. I think it also plays into the idea that, as we saw with the Ancient One explaining, like, oh, there's all these parallel timelines. Like Endgame really opened up a lot of possibilities and doors for them before we even get to the multiverse of madness. So I think this is a different version of the character. But I'm curious, Angelique, what are your thoughts on Jamie Foxx in this movie?
I think if they give him a better written role and better character design, they will be starting off on a majorly good foot. I've said it before, like Jamie is definitely a better good guy than he is a bad guy, except for that one where he was in jail. And I can't remember the name of it, but he was basically a psychopath that almost blew up the entire city. He was pretty great in that one. Not gonna lie. I will find that movie and send it to people, or someone can put it in Twitter for me. But I will honestly say they would have to make that role more intellectually. It has to be intellectually deeper, right? Like he wasn't believable, and I don't know if it was fully him, but he really wasn't believable the first time he played that role. And I think that if you gave it more depth and more backstory, instead of making it it was much more of a Richard Pryor-esque villain from Superman. And I don't want to see Jamie play that role again because he's not Richard Pryor. He's Jamie Foxx, and it comes with different strengths and weaknesses. So I'm not going to be complete Debbie Downer. When I first saw it, I was like, oh, I don't want this. But if they're revamping the role, I'm open to see what happens.
I think they are revamping the role. First of all, the movie was Law Abiding Citizen, I think that you're thinking of.
Thank you.
Yes, I got you covered. And in terms of Jamie Foxx, he's also said he's not going to be blue this time in that Instagram post. So at least aesthetically speaking, I imagine it's going to be a different take on the character. I don't think the characterization that we got in Amazing Spider-Man 2 is in line with the kind of reality they've built with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So fingers crossed we will get a better version of Max Dillon this time around. And I will keep my fingers extra crossed that he gets the equally silly classic lightning bolt face mask because like I just love that so much. It reminds me of the halcyon days of reading comics as a kid, even though it has no place. I like how they play with that stuff in WandaVision, where like you get the old school costumes as like Halloween costumes. So maybe it'll just be like a mask. He's like, no, this is cheesy. It'll be like a little throwaway line or something.
And also for the record, he was not the villain in Law Abiding Citizen. I projected that on him. And so I still stand by he doesn't play villain well.
Here's the thing though, in I feel like in Amazing, which so many things went wrong in that movie. Just so many things that had, this is how I feel about all like bad superhero movies, basically, is that there's potential. There's so much potential. And that's what makes me angriest, is like, maybe the actors aren't like, I think Andrew Garfield was not a terrible Spider-Man. I think in the first Amazing Spider-Man, there was a lot of potential for them to be like great, but there were inconsistencies, say, in how Peter was portrayed throughout the film, and same with Amazing. And so Jamie Foxx, I think, given what the MCU Spider-Man movies have done with villains who have not been my favorite in the comics, and managed to, I think, create some of the best villains in the MCU. Like Vulture is top 3 villains for me in the MCU. I think he's such a strong villain. And even like Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio, who I hate Mysterio as a villain in the comics. I hate him. I hate when he shows up. I hate it. I'm always like, oh, I don't want to read a Mysterio comic. But you
got a lot of feels, man.
Makes me so mad. But in the movie, I feel like they did such a good job bringing him to screen. So I have a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope in my heart for the Electro that they could potentially bring to screen, given what exists for Electro in terms of storylines and how he will interact differently with Peter, now that hopefully this is not going to be a superhero who is influenced by another superhero, who is mad because of something another superhero did. Like, I hope this is a Spider-Man villain who's mad at Spider-Man for whatever.
As much as I love seeing like in Far From Home, when they just like kind of pan to the left in scenes that we've seen already,
it's
and there's
so
just
good.
Jake Gyllenhaal being like, "Oh, curse you, Tony Stark." I do hope that like
great.
This is either a villain looking to make a name for himself, or someone's going to put a bounty on Spidey, or he has a personal beef with your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But I do think that whatever they do with it, it's exciting. It's nice to feel this sense of like, nowadays we know you can suss out a lot of details about what's going to happen. There's so much granular reporting about every last detail of a film. So it's nice to have this feeling of kind of freshly fallen snow, where you're like, I think I know what's under that snow, but I'm not quite sure, and I can't wait to find out. So
I just want Sandman, like a good one.
Ooh.
There's a lot of villains I want to see. I want to see a Mr. Negative. I want to see a Black Cat. Give me the Black Cat, please.
We were gonna get a Black Cat. That was
I know.
I know. Silver and Black. Ooh, I have feelings.
Basically, I just want the Spider-Man PS4 game to be the movie, because that's already the best Spider-Man movie I've ever seen.
It is the best Spider-Man movie I too have ever seen.
So good.
And the best traversal mechanics in a very long time. So I'm very excited to experience that again with Spider-Man Miles Morales and a whole new story on top of that.